Hello, stay. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine the smell of heavy stage fog, the sharp ozone of flickering LED screens, and that sudden, deafening silence that hits the moment the stadium lights go black. We've all seen them under the blinding glare of the spotlights, 8 figures moving with a precision that feels almost superhuman. But have you ever wondered what happens when the music stops? Beyond the high-budget music videos and the perfectly timed choreographies, there's a magnetic pull that keeps millions of stays awake at 3 a.m., tracing the lines of their journey. It's not just about the charts or the trophies anymore. It's about the raw, unscripted energy that lingers in a quiet practice room at dawn, the shared glances during a chaotic backstage change, and the unspoken weight they carry for each other. Why is it that, out of hundreds of groups, this specific brotherhood feels like home? What is it about their presence, sometimes chaotic, sometimes hauntingly quiet, that makes us feel like we're part of a secret they're only telling us? Today, we're stepping away from the polished idol persona and peeling back the curtain. We're diving into the intangible aura, the hidden habits, and the deep-seated loyalties that define the Stray Kids phenomenon. We've gathered the stories, the insider whispers, and the subtle moments you might have missed if you blinked. This isn't just a ranking, it's an anatomy of a bond that feels unbreakable. Are you ready to see what really happens when the cameras aren't the only ones watching? Let's talk about the 5 visceral reasons why these 8 souls are etched so deeply into our hearts. The first reason might not be what you expect. It starts with a vibe that shifts the air the moment he walks into a room. Number 5. The silent anchor in a storm of neon lights. There's a specific kind of silence that exists backstage just minutes before a world tour kicks off. It's thick, heavy with the scent of hairspray and the nervous energy of dozens of staff members scurrying around with headsets. In that chaotic vacuum, if you look closely, you'll see him. He's usually the one not pacing. He's not doing vocal runs or checking his reflection for the 10th time. Instead, he's standing there like a statue carved from pure composure, watching the younger members with an intensity that feels almost predatory if it weren't so deeply protective. People around the scene often describe his presence as the low frequency of the group, the steady hum that keeps the high-pitched anxiety of a stadium show from shattering the glass. While the world sees the sharp, almost lethal precision of his dancing, those who have caught glimpses of him behind the curtain talk about a different man. It's the way he checks a backup dancer's shoelaces without saying a word, or the way his humor, often sharp and unpredictable, like a sudden spark of electricity, serves as a pressure valve when the tension gets too high. There's a legendary sort of insider buzz about his duality. He's the one who will playfully threaten to put a member in an air fryer, but he's also the first one to notice if a staff member hasn't eaten or if a younger member's hand is shaking slightly before a big speech. He doesn't offer grand, cinematic comfort. He doesn't do the idol-style fan service that feels rehearsed. Instead, he offers a grounded, visceral reality. It's a groundedness that feels like a weighted blanket in a world that's constantly spinning too fast. When you see him on screen, there's an air of mystery, a cat-like detachment that makes you want to lean in, but the real pull is the profound reliability he radiates. He's the one who remembers the small things, the one who maintains the foundation so the others can fly. He represents a love that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. It's in the way he handles the smallest details of a performance, ensuring the safety of the stage, or the way he retreats into the background to let others shine, only to step forward the second he senses a gap in the formation. Stays don't just love him for the way he commands the center of the stage, with a gaze that could freeze time. They love him because, in a career built on ephemeral moments and fleeting trends, he feels permanent. He is the Sundari heart that beats with a hidden, fierce loyalty. There's a sense that if the world ended tomorrow, he'd be the one calmly organizing the supplies while making a sarcastic comment to keep everyone from crying. It's that blend of high-fashion visual and neighborhood young energy that creates a gravitational pull no one can quite escape. You find yourself watching his fan cams not just for the footwork, but to see that split-second smirk he gives when a member hits a difficult note, a silent, "I knew you could do it," that carries more weight than 1,000 speeches. He is the protector who refuses to call himself one, the dancer who treats his body like a precision instrument, and the soul who proves that sometimes the most emotional support is simply being the one person who doesn't blink when things get hard. But as steady as he is, there's another kind of energy that permeates the Stray Kids' Orbit 1 that isn't about stability, but about a raw, unyielding fire that seems to burn from the inside out, fueled by a history we only know in fragments. Have you ever wondered what it takes to turn almost losing everything into a weapon of pure charisma? Number 4. The relentless spirit forged in a crucible of almost. There's a specific kind of silence that feels heavy, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that tastes like salt and cold practice room air at 4 a.m. If you followed the story from the beginning, you know that silence almost became a permanent curtain call for him. There's an insider buzz that often floats around the creative directors and stylists who work closely with the group. They say his presence is like a sudden drop in barometric pressure. One minute, he's this ethereal, sun-kissed figure laughing in the catering line, smelling like a mix of expensive citrus and the faint, sweet scent of some bakery treat he brought for the staff. And the next, he's standing under the stage lights with a gaze so heavy it feels like it has physical weight. But the real reason he's etched into the collective soul of the fandom isn't just that famous cavernous voice that seems to vibrate the very floorboards of the stadium. It's the ghost of the survival era that still flickers in his eyes when he thinks no one is looking. People who have been backstage during the high-tension transitions of a world tour describe him as a vibe shifter. When the energy dips, when the members are drenched in sweat and gasping for air in the dark behind the LED screens, he's often the one reaching out. It's not a loud, performative cheer. It's a hand on a shoulder, a forehead pressed against a teammate's, a whispered word in a deep register that sounds more like a prayer than a pep talk. There's a raw, unfiltered sincerity to him that feels almost dangerous in an industry built on plastic perfection. He's the one who will spend hours hand-making brownies for dozens of staff members, not because it's a good look, but because he seems to possess an almost desperate need to ensure everyone around him feels seen. It's as if he's still making up for that moment the music almost stopped for him, turning every second on stage into a frantic, beautiful act of gratitude. When you see him interact with stays, it's not just a fan and idol dynamic, it's something more visceral. There's a vulnerability there that he refuses to hide, the way his voice cracks when he talks about his family, or the way he lets himself be small when he's overwhelmed. It's that contrast, the deep voice that commands the dark, aggressive concepts of the group's discography, paired with a soul that seems to be made of pure, unadulterated light. He represents the miracle factor of the group. Every time he takes center stage, there's a collective intake of breath because everyone in that room knows he fought his way back into that frame. He is the personification of the second chance, and he carries that responsibility with a grace that is frankly exhausting to witness. But beyond the sunshine and the deep bass, there's an intellectual, almost hauntingly focused energy that keeps the group's internal clock ticking. While one member provides the soul, another provides the vision, a vision that started in a small, cramped room with nothing but a laptop and a hunger that most people would find terrifying. Do you know what it looks like when a person stops living for themselves and starts living for the legacy of 7 other people? Number 3. The architect of a sound that refused to be quiet. If you've ever been near the production corridors of a major music festival, past the glittering outfits and the frantic makeup artists, there is a specific kind of hum that comes from a laptop in a dimly lit corner. It's the sound of a mind that never actually goes to sleep. There is a behind-the-scenes impression that follows him like a shadow stray, mentions from producers and engineers who have seen him hunched over a console at 5 a.m., his eyes bloodshot but his focus terrifyingly sharp. While the world sees the best leader and the man who gives the warmest hugs during a concert's endingment, the people who share his air in the studio describe something much more intense. He isn't just leading a group, he's conducting a revolution. There's an energy about him that feels like a coiled spring, a man who spent 7 years in the dark watching others debut, and instead of turning bitter, he turned himself into a fortress. Staff members often whisper about the way he carries himself in meetings. It's not the posture of a typical idol waiting for instructions, but that of a creative director who knows every single layer of a backing track. He smells like black coffee and the faint, sterile scent of a recording booth, a physical reminder of the thousands of hours he's sacrificed. But the real reason he is loved with such a fierce, protective loyalty by stays isn't just his talent, it's the weight. You can see it in the way he stands at the very edge of the stage, looking out at the ocean of light sticks, not as a king surveying his kingdom, but as a guardian checking his perimeter. He is the one who took the leftovers, the misfits, and the kids who didn't fit the mold, and built them a home out of bass drops and raw lyrics. There's a visceral sense that he would quite literally burn himself out to keep the other 7 warm. When he does his live broadcasts, those late-night sessions that feel more like a confession than a fan interaction, he bridges a gap that most idols keep firmly shut. He talks to the camera as if he's talking to a long-lost friend, admitting his flaws and sharing his music as if it's his only lifeline. It's that raw accessibility, the Chan's room energy that creates a bond so deep it feels familial. He's the older brother who stayed up to make sure you got home safe. He represents the endurance of the group, the human bridge between a dream and the brutal reality of the industry. He is the personification of the phrase, lead by example, and every time he lets out that tired, genuine laugh after a grueling set, you realize you're not just a fan of his music, you're a witness to his survival. Yet, even with a leader this strong, every heartbeat needs a rhythm that is purely emotional, a spark of genius that doesn't come from a laptop, but from a soul that seems to vibrate at a different frequency than the rest of humanity. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone who seems to see a world that no one else can? Number 2, the abstract soul living in a frequency of his own. If you've ever stood in the wings of a stage during a sound check, you felt it, the static in the air that hums just before a lightning strike. In the world of Stray Kids, that static has a name. There is an insider buzz among the stage crews and the photographers who track every frame of their movement. They say he's the most unpredictable element in the building. One moment, he's curled up in the corner of a dressing room, hood pulled low, smelling faintly of oversized hoodies and the sharp metallic tang of an energy drink, looking like he wants to disappear into the drywall. But the second his boots hit the stage floor, the transformation is almost frightening. It's not just idle talent, it's a possession. He's the one who turns a 3-minute song into a desperate lyrical exorcism, his eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that suggests he's looking for one specific soul to understand him. People around the group often describe his energy as brilliant but fragile, a high-strung wire that produces the most beautiful music precisely because it's stretched so thin. Behind the scenes, in those quiet moments in the recording studio that the cameras rarely capture, he's known as the one-take wonder, a lyrical savant who can map out a masterpiece while the others are still finding their seats. But the reason stays hold him with such a protective, almost aching kind of love isn't just because he's a triple threat who can out-rap the veterans and out-sing the divas. It's the honesty of his anxiety. In an industry that demands a 24/7 mask of happiness, he is the one who dared to say, "I'm scared, and sometimes the lights are too bright." When you watch him during those chaotic variety shoots, he's the quacka, the loud comedic heartbeat that keeps the energy from flatlining. But then you listen to a song like Alien or Sunshine, and you realize that humor is his armor. There's a visceral human connection that happens when a fan sees him go from a panic attack behind a curtain to a world-class performance in under 60 seconds. He represents the humanity of the group, the reminder that genius comes with a cost, and that it's okay to be a misfit even when you're at the top of the world. He doesn't just perform for the fans, he speaks to the parts of them that feel lonely, misunderstood, or out of place. He is the poet who uses a microphone like a shield. But as deep as the poetry goes, there is one final presence that transcends even the music, a figure that feels less like a member of a group and more like a physical manifestation of a dream. Have you ever wondered what happens when the perfect visual stops being a picture and starts being a person who refuses to be defined by his face? Number 1. The relentless perfectionist hidden behind a masterpiece. If you've ever stood in the wings of a theater during the final seconds of a blackout, right before the bass drops and the world explodes into light, there's a specific sound you'll hear. It isn't the crowd. It's the sharp, jagged intake of breath from a performer who is about to give everything they have until there's nothing left but sweat and adrenaline. In the inner circles of the industry, among the high-fashion photographers who have watched him through a lens for hours, and the choreographers who have seen him collapse after a 16-hour rehearsal, there is a behind-the-scenes impression that he doesn't just dance, he bleeds into the music. He smells like a complex paradox. The expensive floral notes of a high-end perfume mixed with the raw, metallic scent of a cold practice room floor. People often describe his aura as blinding, but if you look past the visual that has graced 1,000 magazine covers, you'll find the most haunted, hard-working soul in the building. There's a legendary sort of insider buzz about his process. He's the one who stays back when the lights are dimmed, long after the other members have headed to the dorms, obsessing over the angle of a wrist or the tilt of a chin in a mirror that has seen more of his frustration than his fame. The reason he is loved with such a breathtaking, almost spiritual intensity by SKZ isn't just because he looks like a painting come to life. It's because he spent years trying to prove he was more than just a pretty face. He is the resilience of the group, the one who took every criticism, every doubt, and every moment of being sidelined and turned them into a lethal artistic weapon. When he's on stage, there's a desperation to his movement, a fluid, almost agonizing beauty that feels like he's trying to tell you a story he can't find the words for. When you see him in those quiet, grainy vlogs, the ones where his hair is tied back in a messy bun, his face bare, and his fingers stained with oil paint, you see the real reason for the devotion. He is a seeker. Whether he's pouring his heart onto a canvas in the middle of the night or writing lyrics that feel like a fever dream, he is constantly trying to bridge the gap between who the world thinks he is and who he actually feels like inside. He represents the growth of the group. He is the living proof that you can be born with a gift, but still choose to work harder than anyone else to earn it. He doesn't just accept the love, he carries it like a heavy, precious responsibility, often appearing moved to tears by the sheer scale of the support he receives. He is the drama in the documentary, the art in the gallery, and the soul that ties the visual identity of Stray Kids into something that feels timeless. There is a sense that every time he performs, he is offering a piece of his spirit as a sacrifice to the stage. It's a magnetism that goes beyond fandom. It's a recognition of a human being who refuses to settle for good enough. He is the final piece of the puzzle, the one who reminds us that beauty is most powerful when it's earned through fire. And as the final curtain falls and the stadium lights slowly hum back to life, you realize that these 8 stories aren't just about music. They're about a brotherhood that redefined what it means to stay. But after all this, do you think you've truly seen everything they're hiding behind the mask?
So, there you have it. 5 visceral reasons why the bond between Stray Kids and Stay feels less like a fandom and more like a pact written in sweat, ink, and late-night promises. We see the glitz, we hear the bass. But it's these quiet backstage truths, the resilience, the silent protection, and the raw humanity that turn a group of 8 performers into a lifeline for millions. In a world that's always demanding perfection, maybe we love them because they showed us that the cracks are where the light gets in. They didn't just find their way to the top, they built the mountain themselves, brick by brick, and invited us to stand there with them. But the story doesn't end here. Every comeback, every stray glance on a behind-the-scenes clip, and every hidden lyric is another chapter. Which of these moments made you realize you were in this for the long haul? Drop a comment below and let's talk about that one moment that made you a stay forever. Don't forget to hit like if this trip behind the curtain moved you, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the idols who redefined the game. Until next time, keep staying.